to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
When the road to success is under construction, it's normally because all the workers are out getting drunk.
And Dale Hummel.
In the words of Albert Einstein, the hardest thing in the world to understand is income tax.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel alongside co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, the Suez Canal, it's open.
Oh, yes, they finally seem to get... I still call bullshit on all of this.
I call double bullshit.
I do not think you can accidentally get one of the world's largest ships.
Ryan, there's 30 mile an hour winds. 30 mile an hour winds.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I believe 18,000 containers on this ship. Can you imagine the size of that? And they're telling us a 30 mile an hour wind threw them off course.
That does not work for me.
Does not calculate. Nope.
I've stood in 30 mile an hour winds and no.
That barely messed up your hair.
No, didn't mess up my hair. Y'all don't know the type of hairspray I use. But I just think that something there, and no. Somebody had a plan, executed it, and then after it stuck, their solution is to unload all of it to get it unstuck.
Well, to raise the boat up a little bit. Yeah. That was the theory.
Yeah. Again,
and I don't know if they had to unload. I don't know what happened, but the dollar amount of traffic that would normally go through there and goods on those cargo containers that they talked about per hour, it was astronomical. It was a crazy number.
I'm just saying nothing got stuck in the Suez Canal when Trump was president. Moving on. Next.
No, nothing. And there's going to be more supply chain issues, and it will be blamed upon that. I know there's another. Ryan, I have so many things to talk about in current events today, but I know there's something you just can't wait to talk about. Do you see any pop-up books or a few?
So your brother, Joe Biden, the leader of the free world.
Uncle Joe.
Leader of the free world. So he finally had a press conference.
Literally our leader.
Literally the leader of our country and the free world. He finally had a press conference. I think he was the longest president in history to wait the longest number of time before he had a press conference.
I cannot call it a press conference.
Well, I didn't watch it, so I don't know. But I did get I read some things about it. Nobody seemed real impressed. But what I find the most appalling is he's only had one press conference. And so at the end of it, I mean, he's been in office over 2 months now, or about 2 months maybe. But anyway.
Over
2 months. Has this press conference. He takes 10 questions from reporters. 10. But here's the kicker. Do you know how he decided he was going to take those 10 questions? Let me tell you. His staff made him a book that had every picture of the reporters in the White House press pool in it. The ones that they absolutely did not want him to take questions from, they put X's through. They circled a couple as maybes, but they had 10 picked out, and they had number 1 by the one they wanted to take first, 2 by the number 2, so on, all the way through 10, and that's exactly what he did. And these fools let people behind this man with cameras so they could see the picture book with the numbers and photograph it for evidence. These people are stupid.
Agreed. Completely agreed. And I don't know how they orchestrated this, but he had notes. Obviously, they can predict what the questions are, especially when they're only going to call on a certain number. They have a pretty good idea what the questions are. And he had his notes all lined out that here's what I'm going to read if I'm asked this question. It was terrible. I don't deem that a true press conference.
Do you know what would happen if Trump would have had a press conference and he would have had anything in front of him? They would have claimed the man was mentally incompetent and should be executed on spot.
Exactly. And yet that they come on and say this was just the greatest, the most sensitive president of all time, all of the glowing reviews from the left. And I was going to save this towards the end of current events, but I'm going to bring it up now. Do you realize, Ryan, we've heard nothing but COVID for a year now. Do you want to know how many questions he took on COVID?
Zero.
Okay, let me draw a little bit of a picture here. And I was going to save this, and I don't know if you're going to approve, but I am confident. I want to be very clear that the Biden administration is not that much different than the Chinese Communist Party. Think of it this way. Controls what questions are asked. Nothing asked about COVID. Let's think about the NBC reporter. They allowed one reporter into what they call a model camp down on the border, basically to show the housing. And it wasn't the greatest, but I think it was the best that they had. He's blocking all the reporters from all the other facilities. He'll let them in once his plan is enacted or whatever the hell he was talking about. But we're controlling where the media is allowed. The Chinese Communist Party will not only control, they'll stage a certain event, bring the media in, let them film that event. That goes out to the world. This is not much different. It really is not much different than what we're seeing from this administration right now.
No, I tell you what the big difference is. There's a huge difference in the two. You know what the difference is? There's probably reporters in China that would like to do more. These idiots in the mainstream media are just taking the handfuls of bullshit and accepting it because Trump's not president. It's
not accepting it. They're approving it.
Right. It's fine. We don't have to cover the real news. If you don't want us to go see the little detention chambers that you've set up for all the immigrants coming,
what do they call them? Kids in cages. Kids in cages.
It's fine. It's okay. We understand, Mr. Biden. You go ahead and be president, dementia ass. Yeah, that is the difference. There are people in China that actually want to show what the Chinese Communist Party are doing. We don't have those people here in America anymore in the mainstream media.
No, I'll tell you what. We need to wake up because there have been more rights abused and taken from us in the past 2 months, and nobody seems to acknowledge it. Nobody seems to care. Ryan, this scares the shit out of me. And I think the average person out there, I think they're just going on about their life, and it is what it is. I'm out. I'm not taking that path.
Did you hear that April Fool's Day got canceled this year? It's this week. Did you hear it got canceled?
I did not.
It did, because there's no bigger joke in America or the nation than the people running this country right now. So there's no reason for April Fool's Day.
You've got it. You have got it. I want to, and I know we're going to run long on current events. And for those of you that don't like our current events, I apologize, but it is what it is because, just fast forward. I don't care what you do, but there's some things that we probably need to bring out. Ryan, we talked about some of this prior to the fall election, that if Biden got in office, these are some problems. It's maybe worse than what we even talked about. Think about we just had a $2 trillion COVID relief bill that was less than 10% for COVID relief passed. So basically a liberal subsidized, let's get their projects all taken care of in that bill. We are just about to get a multi-trillion-dollar bill that is in the process right now. The code word for it is infrastructure. This is in the works. It includes the highest government spending bill ever and the highest tax hike in decades. Biden calls this a once-in-generation investment in America, and it should be paid for like a house over the next 30 years. That is absolutely insane. There's $174 billion to win the electric car market in this bill. That means that the electric car market cannot sustain itself, so the taxpayers have to subsidize. I'm out, completely out. $213 billion to build 2 million sustainable houses. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with the houses, nor do I know.
They're going to put the immigrants in them.
Probably. How about this, Ryan? $100 billion to promote gender-neutral acceptance in the workplace.
Sweet Jesus.
Does that mean we have to we eliminate the 2 bathrooms and just have the 1 bathroom? Is that what? I don't know. I don't understand how you spend money for that. Help me out here.
I don't want to get it.
It's only $100 billion. It's not a lot.
It's only $100 billion.
Yeah. How about $10 billion for Civilian Climate Corps? A civilian climate. I don't even know what the hell that is. No idea. I tried to look it up. I couldn't come up with it.
This is all just a ruse to implement his tax hike. That's all this is.
Oh, it is an administration of the government, by the government, for the government, more taxes, more spending, corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%, global minimum tax, 13 to 21%. And hold on, time out. Next week is part 2. As soon as this bill gets through, they're already introducing another bill that involves massive social plans. This is going to be one that you are going to get paid as much or more for not working as those living in your area that are working, because we want equality.
I'm saying I get what you're talking about, but the big picture here is all this is a whole bunch of BS, and they're putting a spin on it to implement his tax hike. That's all that is. Period. Sorry. That's it.
And it's massive. I don't think people realize the implications this is going to have long term.
They're going to.
It's painful. Painful. He's trying to be the most progressive president in the history. And if he gets these 2 bills alone through,
I think it's progressive. He gets up every morning and knows his damn name.
I
What
am
press
really
conference?
struggling. What about putting Camel Toe in charge of the crisis at the border that's not a crisis? How's that idea?
No. See, now you were confused. Camel Toe explained this. She is not going to the border, and she's not going to deal with the border. What he supposedly tapped her to do is to find out why all the migrants are wanting to come to the border now. But she doesn't have to go down there and figure that out. She can just stay in her.
Didn't a reporter ask her a question if she's going to the border?
And she said no. And then because she said, no, I'm not doing the border. That's exactly what she said.
And then cackled for 5 seconds.
Right. And then later they had to cover that up. And she said, I was never supposed to go to the border, be down at the border. I am supposed to figure out why we have this issue at the border now.
But we don't have a crisis at the border. This is normal.
She said issue.
Biden says this is just in the winter. This is a better time for him to come. It's normal. Every year this happens. I heard him say that.
Okay.
I don't know if he's just assuming that the public is that ignorant.
The public ain't as ignorant as his old ass is. But
what about when he was considering Cuomo for attorney general? How'd that work out? The highest law enforcement official in the land.
I bet Cuomo was wishing that had gone through right about now.
He would have had to pardon himself or something, wouldn't he?
Yeah, because between his little nursing home stuff and his obvious problems with women of the opposite sex, there's Democrats that are saying, okay, dude, you need to give it up.
It's time to go. We're hearing all about the gun control as well. And this is such a hypocritical bunch of crap. These elite politicians that have their security in place that are carrying guns, they don't want us to carry guns. What in the hell do they think is going to happen if they put more gun control laws on the books and the law-abiding citizens may or may not abide by them? But I can guarantee you, no matter what they put in place, the thugs are going to have guns, period. And what makes them think that those people are going to abide by this?
Look, I do not own a gun and whatever, but I think that you should have a right to. I don't mind people. Daddy James has got an arsenal sitting on the other side of the hill over here. Here is the point. I don't care if it's drugs, guns, sex, whatever. You can put as many laws in place as you want to. Write 1 million of them. They're still going to be for sale. It's just going to cost a little more, and you're still going to be able to get your hands on them.
Yeah, it's
that's
going to allow
it is.
Guns in the criminals' hands and not in the law-abiding citizens' hands. It's so simple. I cannot begin to comprehend how they can push things like this through. Think of it this way: they've defunded the police. Crime is going up. What would ever make somebody want to go into law enforcement right now when they've bashed on the police so hard, pulled money away, pulled their abilities to do different things away, right at the time that we need really good people going into law enforcement? And I'm sure there'll still be some, thank God, go into it, but there is no incentive to do that. Ryan, I think we need to begin the gay security company. We need to give you a gun. Company. We can go out, and I think private security is going to go through the roof. Gated communities are going to go through the roof. Regions of the country that in theory are safer, you're going to see housing. I think the inner city or the larger cities, the populous areas, I'm fearful that law and order is the numbers that I see in terms of homicides. Every level of crime is inflated so much in the past 6 months, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And we continue to put things in place to not allow the police to do their job.
It's a lovely administration. I think they're doing great things for our country.
No, it's not. I was going to talk about the World Health Organization, but we probably don't have time for that. There is one thing we can throw in real quick. Have you heard of this one, the critical race theory? Critical race theory.
No, I guess I missed this.
This is real, and I think it's being pushed in the school system. It basically turns everything that happens is somehow race-related. They used an example that a Band-Aid is a neutral white color. I don't know what color Band-Aids are. But if you were to hand a person a Band-Aid, you're imposing your racist beliefs upon them.
Band-Aid
it's crazy.
is tan.
It's tan. But I think it's considered more white than black. I don't know. But there's so much of this going on. And I see it in my junior high / high school age kids. There's definitely a push in the school system that...
So wait. Now what you're telling me is if you're a white person, you need a white Band-Aid. If you're a black person, you need a black Band-Aid?
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. And I think there are people out there with so little to do, they search for any and everything that they can somehow tie to racism. And unfortunately, this actually fosters racism in my mind. That may have never been an issue prior to them bringing so much attention and making up so much crap about this. It's doing more harm than good.
Where were all these race problems when we had a black president?
I don't know.
He was there for 8 years. None of this came up. Wouldn't you think that if there were real racial issues in this country, that the first black president would have wanted to work on those?
I would think. I would.
And nothing.
Oh, zero.
Nothing.
You know what else we just about forgot about? Your administration, your president. Remember, you talked about him being your president.
He is my
You're
president.
going to give him a chance. Are you still giving him? I forgot about that chance part.
He's everybody that lives in this country's president, whether we like it or not.
Are you still giving him a chance?
No, his chance is done.
Okay. Your
But he
administration
is still the president, people. I don't care what y'all think.
Ryan, your administration is going to require a vaccine ID to enter a grocery store. Yet they could care less about an ID when you go to vote. What in the world would want them to be more lax on voting requirements for an ID versus going to a grocery store? I'm confused.
I don't understand why you're going to have a Rona passport to do just about anything, I guess. But you still, maybe if you have to have a Rona passport to vote, then that will at least kind of be like having an ID.
Maybe there'd be a picture ID to vote. Maybe.
I mean,
That's
I don't know.
possible.
I don't know what the Rona passports are going to look like. But if you're going to have one to get on a plane or go into a grocery store, then how are you going to say you don't have to have one to vote?
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, this could change. Remember, we heard last week about gas and mileage tax, and all of a sudden, complete reversal. Nope, that's not taking place. The finger up in the wind must not have gone well on that one. Even the liberals must have been upset about that. So this could change, maybe.
I doubt it. I think the Rona passport thing's going to happen. I don't
You think so?
I think the mileage tax is probably going to happen too. It's going to be like all this other stuff, but they'll just rework it and name it something else and slide it.
That's
in there.
possible. Yeah, they definitely canceled at the moment. They're going to put a new name on it and push it back through. You had an eventful week.
I have had the most eventful week, but
You judged in the middle of a racetrack, didn't you?
that was this weekend. I just judged the county fair today. But Monday, I served as an official at the Houston Livestock Show Intercollegiate Livestock Judging Contest. And there was over 300 kids, lots of teams, lots of people got to go. So it was a good way to end out kind of the competitive judging season for the spring and all this. And I listened to JUCO Reasons. And so, again, what I'm about to say is probably going to offend a lot of people. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. But
how can you say anything from a judging contest that's going to offend somebody?
Yeah, probably will. But anyway, So there is a trend now in this thing that we call the JUCO livestock judging world. And I am probably way more open to people being a little more dramatic, a little more showy, or having a little more flair in terms of their reasons presentation than probably almost anybody.
Maybe a little more color in their outfit. All of those
Right.
things.
All of these things than almost anybody that takes reasons for all the obvious reasons that we know. But
More than someone like me,
Right.
I would think.
But so there is this trend that when they're giving the reasons, they bounce up and down. And I'm not like, I studied this all day because it was not just a team.
Ryan, what do
They
you mean
bounce.
bounce? We don't bounce
They
when we're giving
bounce.
reasons. No, I've not witnessed this.
And again, I studied this all day. We had about 80 contestants in the JUCO deal because they split sides, and so odds were on one side, evens one on the other. So I got about 80 kids. When I mean they bounce, they literally rock up and down on their heels as they give reasons, and then they also have these kind of like pop star shoulder movements and stuff. It's a lot.
Do they work in that? What do I call it? A laugh, but that condescending. Huh.
And there was some that didn't offend me nearly as much as this. Literally, I call it the bounce because that's what it looked like in the shoulder
The bounce.
gyrations, whatever. Okay, this needs to stop.
Did that help their scores?
No, it did not. But this needs to stop. Like I'm, and again, I don't care what coaches I offend. I don't care what kids I offend. This needs to stop. Because here is the problem. It does not matter what is coming out of your mouth, because I am sitting there literally looking at all the things you are physically doing with your body that are distracting, that I can't pay attention to what you are saying.
It's not simple animation or emphasizing a word. It's a bounce.
No, there's nothing against having facial animations or, an occasional head nod to emphasize the point or stuff like that. If you want to like shrug your shoulders about something, whatever, I'm okay with all of that.
No, don't give me the shoulder shrug. I'm out. There's 5 points.
You
gone.
would be fine with the shoulder shrug if you would have seen what I saw on Monday, sir.
No,
These people were like in boy bands.
I don't think so. Well, I would like them to continue doing this through whatever contest. Probably Arizona's the next time I will be listening. I would like to witness this.
No, because you will rip people to shreds. I mean, it would, but reasons need to be like, when you're giving reasons, you're not presenting on a stage. You're one-on-one with an individual. And so while that person taking the reasons in a chair and you're standing in front of them, it's not a panel, it's not an interview. It is a conversation, but it needs to be conversation with a little kick. It does not need to be what I saw on Monday.
I'd like the conversation with a little kick. That's exactly where it needs to be.
But that's what it needs to be. All this that I saw, this trend needs to stop.
How do you
And
think things like this even begin?
I do not know. I do not understand. And I am all for being different and unique. And we have talked about things that you need to find a way to grab them and get their attention from the beginning or something like that. I never said get up and bounce and like do boy band moves.
I am having a hard time picturing this. I have not witnessed this yet.
And there were other officials, at least 5, that we all discussed this at different times. Now, they may not have cut them in scores. They may have just let it go. No one found this to be something that needs to happen. They won't say anything. And so that is why I am saying it on here, because I do not want this to continue on other kids coming up or these kids that are continuing to senior college, because it is going to eventually hurt them and cut them greatly. Like, there will be people that just absolutely, positively will just slash you over this.
I will volunteer for that.
And so again, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or step on anybody's toes.
This is constructive criticism. Constructive criticism.
Keep your feet on the ground and, facial animation, all that's great. Conversation with the kick. Let's keep our heels on the ground.
And if they feel like other officials like this, keep doing it. But you're just making it clear that you do not, and your prediction is that others will even be harder than you were on it.
I'm telling you, I talked to almost every JUCO official there. None of them liked it. Now, again, I don't know if it reflected in their scoring. None of them liked it. And I think there is a little bit of lenience in JUCO because they're on their first year. And I think a lot of people are more lenient right now because everybody's not got to go to as many contests. I do not see this flying worth a damn in senior college.
And you don't think it's progressed to senior college yet?
I just took reasons in Louisville at senior college. I would have brought this up if I saw it there.
Got it. That's interesting. What percentage of the kids that came in would have done that?
I would say at least 25%. And I know that there was 5 different team numbers that multiple teams did this.
Wow.
If it would have just been one team, I would have gone to them after and said like, hey, you may not want my opinion, but I'm going to give it to you. This is a bad thing. Since it was multiple teams and a large section of the participants, I had to bring it up.
I understand. I did not witness that, but I can tell it has you very disturbed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Angry, maybe?
Not angry. There's no reason for it. It didn't add to anything. It was distracting. And those kids work so hard at this. You want to be able to pay attention to what they say and get a feel for how they read the class and their knowledge and their expertise and all that. And you just couldn't.
Well, I'm sure some will listen to you, some will not, and maybe I'll get to see it yet.
There you go. Now you can go on to the topic. That is my topic.
It is, I think, a great topic. I don't know how this one hits you. I think it's something that needs to be discussed. Hopefully it has an impact. The main topic: 1 judge, 2 judge, 3 judge more. Ryan,
ta-da!
I don't think they know what we're talking about yet. Would you like to explain it?
No, not everybody that listens to this podcast knows this, but there are actually about 3 different ways that shows are judged. One is one man or woman judges it solo, does it all by themselves. Another one is there is a pair of individuals. It could be co-judges, or it could be a lead judge and an associate judge. And then there is another system where it is 3 individuals that just score cards and turn them in, and then they have a point system. And if the points are higher for top placings, then the highest point one wins the class, or if it's the lowest points, whatever. But there is a point system, and they turn those 3 cards in, and that's how the results come out. And so I just think that we should discuss the pros and cons of all of them. And, of course, we're going to give our opinion on what we think is the most beneficial for everybody. And we know up front that this is probably not for the county fair level or the jackpot show level. But when we get to these larger state fairs and these larger national shows, this is kind of what this is aimed at right here.
Exactly. And I think some of the larger jackpot shows can maybe justify it, but most of the county fairs, it just probably isn't economical, not necessarily going to fit going beyond the traditional 1 judge. So let's just start with 1 judge, Ryan. What pros? What are the advantages of 1 judge?
Well, I think that when you've got one person out there, of course, they know that all of the weight of the exhibitors, their families, and all that rests on their shoulders. And so that is something that we hope, resonates with them, and they understand how that. I tell people all the time that judging any show is an honor, and you hear judges say all the time that it's an honor and a privilege, or whatever. I think we forget that it is more than an honor and privilege. It is a responsibility. That's how I look at it. yes, I am honored to be there. Yes, it is a privilege to work with those children, but it is really a responsibility to everyone involved, from show management to the exhibitors, to the families, to the spectators. You were responsible, the most important person in terms of responsibility of making everyone have a good experience at that show. And so when there is one person, they are solely responsible. I think that in terms of most people, in terms of time and efficiency, it probably works the best because you don't have to turn in a card or you don't have to converse with anybody else. And so those parts of it are real good. And there are major shows right now, I would say the majority of them are a one-person sorting system. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel or say that system is broken. Why I think there are some good things about it. I just think there's some other positive things to these other systems as well. And maybe that should be brought up and implemented more too as well.
And I can appreciate, as far as tradition, somewhat of a one-judge system. It's simple. It's cost-effective. I think it works fine for the smaller shows. I think there's a lot of positive, and I think kids are used to that in general at most shows. But there is no question. I'm going to take it the other direction on the negative side, Ryan.
You told me to address the positive,
yes,
sir.
Yes, I'm going to go negative now if that works. And you can.
Well,
you
I
can
had a lot of negatives about it, but fine, just steal my thunder.
I will just take the big glaring one, if you'd like.
Mm-hmm. Go right ahead.
It has become
showboat.
More recently, it's become a disaster from a political biased situation at some shows under some judges.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? It's much easier to be political when you're the only one out there in the ring.
Yeah, it's really easy. When you're the sole decision maker, you can do whatever the hell you want to.
Especially if you're able to get on the microphone and speak well and convince the world that you're right. I do not want to say this is happening everywhere. I just want to bring out the point that in my observation over many, many years, it appears to be maybe going to more of an extreme right now than I've seen in my lifetime.
No, I think politics are at extreme in the show ring. There's no doubt about that. But like you're saying, when there's only one judge out there, they're it, and they make all the decisions, and they have all the say and sway and all that other stuff. And so, and again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that system as long as you have the right person that has the right things and right priorities in terms of sorting those animals, being fair, being honest, being good to the kids. All of that is, and there are plenty of people out there capable to do it. And so if all those things are there, I don't have a problem with a one-person sorting system. I, like you, think that also it's real easy to let politics come into play when there's only one person there, because they do have all the decision-making power. There's no one to hold them accountable. And again, I think there are other things too, and we'll talk about this as we go throughout the other systems. When you're judging a show, a major show, or a Texas major, national major, junior national, any of those NJSA hog shows, whatever, when you're talking 1,000 animals, I don't care who you are, you're going to miss something when you're the only person out there. I would miss, everybody's going to miss. And I'm not talking negative. That's just how it is when you're going to go through that many head in a certain number of time. You're just not going to be able to catch everything. And I think that is another detractor from the solo act, one-person system, is there is not another pair of eyes out there. It is solely yours. And again, I would miss stuff if I was out there on my own.
No, and I think that points to the fact that we know how much time and effort each family and each exhibitor is putting into this. And Ryan's going to be very open about it. 1,000 head, you're going to miss something. It may not be the best one.
I'm not saying you're going to miss the grand champion of the show,
yeah,
but you're going to miss something.
But you're going to miss something. And if we can do anything possible to give that exhibitor a more fair chance, we need to do it at the big shows, at least.
Right. And another thing about that is, before I was ever able to show, Houston for the steers had a 3-man system. And it wasn't, I don't know if they scored cards or what, but it was a 3-man system. And I can always remember as a little kid, I was like, how am I going to look at 3 judges at once and stuff like that? But that system was there for a long time. Then now it's been 1. And again, I think that the 1-man or the 1-woman system is a good one, but we're at a different level of competition than we've ever been at before, where in these classes at these shows with this much pomp and circumstance and, high level of competition, where per class there might have been 1 or 2 that really, were in the thick of it. Now there might be 10. And so as it's got more competitive and the quality has gotten deeper, I think that tends to push again to maybe having another pair of capable eyes out there not being such a bad thing.
I agree completely with that, Ryan, and I think it's just logical. With that being said, and I can use this as an example, and I've co-judged with others before, and I've oftentimes taken when I was coaching, I would take a student with me, whether it was a jackpot show or a county show or whatever, in part to give them that experience, but also if I'm doing a hog show, check the underlines, just be that extra set of eyes. And even though they're not that experienced, it's nice for them to come up and just say, hey, this is what's going on. I can use some of our international shows. They have a lead judge and they have what they call a secretary. And that secretary would be the co-judge or assistant judge. And their job is to not necessarily jump out in front and take the lead, but they're just observing things. And if there's something they believe that lead judge may miss, whether it's how they're coming at them on their feet and legs, or they're just something out of place, it's their job to go to them and say, hey, we might want to look at this or that. I don't know that that's perfect, but it's going the right direction to a certain degree.
So those are kind of the pros and cons of the 1-man, 1-woman, 1-sorter system, however you want to say it. I'm just talking about all this gender neutrality that we're spending on, and I'm keep referring to
maybe the shows will get a subsidy to eliminate a bathroom at the show ring. 1 bathroom.
There you go. But when I say 1-man, I'm not trying to say that only men can sort. Obviously, I don't think that. It's just something I refer to. But
are you being sexist?
I'm not trying to be. I'm really not.
I took it that way.
I know you did. So, but that's why I'm apologizing. That's why I'm apologizing in advance. I'm not being sexist. I think girls can judge just as well as men, etc. So if I refer to it as a 1-man or 2-man system, I'm sorry.
Were there more males or females bouncing in your reasons room?
They were about equal.
Okay, then you're fine.
They're about equal. Yeah.
If you're a show manager in charge of deciding who the judge or judges, male or female, are going to be, and we're progressing to a 2-person system, Ryan, do you suggest that they call 1 judge and you say, hey, we want a name or names of a co-judge, or does that 1 person need to be the lead judge and the other's assistant as an assistant judge?
Since we're moving on to the 2-person, 2-sorter system, we need to make clear that there are 2 ways that you go about this. And we kind of said this at the beginning, but sometimes there is a lead judge and there is an associate judge. That is very popular in a lot of the open national breeding cattle shows. And so normally when it works out that way, show manager picks the judge and they say, we'd like for you to have an associate. They basically say, who would you want? And they say XYZ. And then they say, oh yeah, that's great. Good. You call him or we'll call him and you 2 judge the show. There is another form of 2-sorter system that happens in cattle, happens a lot in hogs, is where they're co-judges, but they both have equal weight, etc., but maybe they split some of the breeds. Like Dale would be the lead in the lighter skinned hogs, and I would be the lead in the darker skinned hogs and stuff like that. But they both have equal weight and they both consult each other and their opinions matter equally. A lot of times in the hog shows, especially like the one that we just left OYE, they have a guy that in the back that sifts for them, and then they kind of come together and talk a little bit about placings. But there is another form of it where they're basically co-judges out there. And so I think that before we get into how show management should handle this, I think we should just talk about the pros and cons of that. Obviously, on the pros, like we were talking about in the one sorter system, you got two pairs of eyes out there. Less is going to get missed all the way around. And I just think that not only is less going to get missed, I think probably the biggest advantage to this, whether it's an associate lead judge or co-judges, the fact that those people that are out there making the decisions can voice their concerns or what they're saying, what they're feeling about a certain class, about a certain animal out loud to someone else and get feedback from that person. I think that's a very positive part of it.
Even just the voicing out loud is going to bring you back to more of a realization.
Right. And I think that is a big part of it, is that you get to vocally say it out loud instead of running it through your head. And then again, you get feedback. And like, I have done this before, and I've gone up and I've said, hey, am I being too hard on this one, on this, or you think that's okay, or you think I'm right, that's probably not good enough in this class? And, you talk about it and you discuss it and come to conclusions and decisions. But I really do think having that, not only that human interaction with someone else, but voicing those things out loud, vocally, getting feedback and talking about it, and the fact that less is going to get missed when there's two capable, competent individuals out there witnessing and evaluating this mass number of animals. I think those things are very positive for a two-sorter system.
Absolutely. And Ryan, I think if you have two competent judges out there, I'm going to take it a step further. With two competent people out there with the four eyes, voicing opinions, bouncing off one another, I'm going to say it's almost impossible to miss much. I'm not saying that their priorities are going to be the same as yours, but they're very, very unlikely to just flat miss something. It's almost not going to happen. And that's a great place to be.
You brought up the politics issue in the one sorter system. It is definitely going to keep that in check more when there are two people out there giving their opinions and calling the shots together. That is going to keep politics in check more, and that's just plain and simple.
I think that it definitely keeps it in check more. If that show calls me up and says, hey, Dale, you need to bring another judge along with you, yeah, you could bring somebody along that's going to be a yes person and politics is going to go along, but it's less likely. And if that show calls you up, Ryan, and says, hey, I want you to judge the lamb show at OYE, can you give us 3-4 names of those that would be, that you would enjoy working with, or you feel comfortable to have a similar type and kind in mind, and then you submit that back to them and they select it, then I think we're just about to that point where politics is not going to come into play.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and we'll go into that a little. There are some negatives to a two-sorter system, and not a lot, but probably the main one is it is more time-consuming. Whether it's cattle or sheep or goats, two people got to handle them, but one can start at one end, one can start at the other. I think where it becomes more time-consuming is in the actual discussion of how they need to be sorted out and placed. And, I don't care if me and someone that I think has all the same priorities that I value in livestock are out there doing it. There's going to be times when we don't agree on something. And so those moments where it's not, all just unicorns and butterflies, that's going to take a little moment to express your opinion, sort it out, and come to a decision. And so I think that's the only big detractor that I see in a two-sorter system.
No, I agree. And just like anything else, you talked about before you were showing 3-judge system at Houston and the Steers. I think once a system's in place, the exhibitors are going to adapt and it's going to become more normal to them. I think the first time in a lamb or a goat show, especially because you have two people going through and handling them, and that doesn't happen very often, I think it's going to be a little awkward for that exhibitor. But you know what I like about it? It's the fact that once they've gone through that, those exhibitors or those showmen that have that ring awareness that's above the rest, they're really gonna fire in and make sure that both those judges are getting a pretty good look most of the time. And I like that idea. I'm in.
I understand those concerns and stuff like that, but again, you're gonna adapt, and if you can't adapt to it, then you're not going to be competitive because change is inevitable in all facts of life. And so, yeah, it might be different the first couple of times, but those families that are competitive and have the drive and desire to win, and the showman the same, they will get it figured out, and they will get it figured out in a real big hurry. And so, again, those are the positives and negatives I see. Dale's touched on this a little bit, but I think this is something that really needs to be focused and concentrated on in the two-sorter system. So I think probably the best way that this could happen, if anyone's going to implement it, I don't know how San Antonio goes about their process of picking the two-steer judges. I don't know how San Antonio or Houston goes about the process of picking the two hog judges, or, you know, how OYE has the judge at the front and the judge on the hill, how they just make those decisions. But I think probably the most beneficial way this could work for any show that wants to implement this system is show management or your committee or whatever comes up with one person and they say, Dale Hummel, you are going to judge this show, but we would like for you to have a co-judge. Could you submit us a list of names? And I wouldn't put a number on that person. Like, I think 3 would be plenty. And submit a list of names of people that you think that you could do this with and do it effectively and do a good job. And we will pick one of those 3 to be the other judge. And that way, you know already that there is a mutual respect between both of them. They obviously like each other and are prepared to spend that much time for multiple days around each other, interacting with them. And also, I think that, again, I don't think you have to love all the same things in livestock, but I think that you probably need to have some common denominators in how you prioritize and sort them, even though you don't have to be dead on, because you're never going to find your clone in sorting stock. But as long as you prioritize a couple of things the same, that's going to make it better for everybody altogether.
We've talked about this many times, that different judges like different types, and it's very simple. And it's not going to work if you pair somebody up with Ryan that they don't emphasize structural soundness and skeletal build and maybe just want to get behind them and muscle them. It's probably not going to, it's going to make it challenging.
Right. And that's why I said, I think if people want to implement this system, that's the best way to go about it. Because again, just grabbing two sorters that are competent, capable, nationally known, and all this other stuff, and not taking these other things into consideration, that might cause a little friction. And I've seen that happen before, where not that they didn't like that person or didn't have respect for him, but they just weren't on the same wavelength. And after that many animals and, always having a little bit of disagreement, it gets tiring and wearing on an individual. And so, again, I think if gonna implement this system, you go about it either you pick one judge, ask them submit a list, or you pick one judge and say, here is a list of 5 people. If you could be happy doing this and comfortable doing this with one of these people on this 5 list that we give you, who would it be? So at least they have an option somehow in the process, the judge does. Whether it's submitting management or list, or management giving them a list of people and saying, could you be comfortable with one of these? And if so, who would be your pick?
I don't know that you can make it, we can emphasize this enough, Ryan. And even before we get to the 3-judge system, I'm going to come out and be a little more forward with this. Part of the reason that Ryan and I are discussing this and why we feel it's so important is right now, judge selection and politics in the show ring and making sure that every kid gets a fair chance if there's one thing out there that could jeopardize our industry or make people not want to continue in our industry, and we absolutely love what this does to the kids, what happens in the bar and the family, everything. We don't even need to go through that. Those of you listening understand that. But not only do we need to try to get this in check, I believe, and I don't know where Ryan is, but this is maybe the simplest step in that direction to make things better, to evolve. And I think we have stepped up competition. We now have 10 deep in some of these classes at different shows that all have a shot at maybe winning that class. So as we've changed, the industry continues to change. And Ryan mentioned it earlier, we need to change with that. And if there's one simple solution to pushing in the right direction, this 2-judge system, exactly as Ryan explained it in terms of submitting the names, vice versa, from the committee or from that judge, it seems simple to me. I don't know why there's not a logical explanation on why not to implement something like this.
The 2-sorter system is something that I would like to see pushed more. Everybody likes to go out there and judge a show by themselves, and people aren't going to want to hear this, but there's a little bit of ego involved in wanting to sort shows. And I'm okay with that because you also get, if you don't have a little ego in you, then you're not gonna want to do this because you get taken down and burnt and talked about so much negatively that if you don't have a lot of confidence, this may not be your gig, if you get what I'm saying, Dale. And so I get that there's you being the sole person out there and knowing that what you say goes is really cool and empowering. And I can't imagine what it would be like at one of those huge majors. And so I understand all that. I think the 2-sorter system helps eliminate politics and bullshit. I think it gives every exhibitor and every family a better chance because there's 2 pairs of competent, capable eyes out there. And I cannot stress enough the fact that you can interact, talk, and discuss the placings with someone that you hold in mutual respect and admiration with. I think all of those things are a win for everyone.
I agree completely, Ryan. I think it's simple. I really do. And I'm not trying to, we are not trying to tell show managers or committees what they should or shouldn't do. We're simply offering suggestions that I think this makes everything more exhibitor friendly. I think it puts a more positive spin on the stock show industry. I think it's good from just about every angle. So we would sort of encourage you as show committees and managers to maybe at least discuss it. And don't be afraid to reach out and visit with some of those exhibitors. What do you think of these ideas? I just can't imagine that many of them are going to come up with a negative. And I promise, I know exhibitors are thinking right now, well, I don't want to have to show to 2 different judges or 2 different judges coming through the handle and get 2 braces. You will get used to it and it will become normal if this progresses. And remember, we're talking about the larger jackpot shows, the state fairs and national shows, not the smaller shows. I don't know that you could justify bringing 2 in. And I don't think it's even going to cost that much more to bring 2 in, especially for the larger shows. I don't know if a lot of you out there listening realize this, but some of the biggest shows out there are probably paying less than what some of the smaller shows may pay in a more, I guess, in a situation where that county has a good sale or whatever. So it's not, people aren't out there judging these shows to make money. Ryan, I would venture to guess you're losing money most weeks.
Every week.
Every week. Okay.
Every week.
Yes, I would. Yeah, I'm there.
And then before we move on to the 3-sorter system, one other thing I want to add on this, and this won't mean a lot to a lot of people, but it's something that I want to bring up because I think it means a lot to kids. When you're judging a huge show like that, and you're the only person out there, you try. I know every judge tries to interact with those kids as much as possible, but I since I've never done one of that size, I don't know if it is physically possible to do it. If you've got 2 people out there, then I think more kids get one-on-one personal interaction with the judge. Maybe not both, but you got a better shot at those kids feeling like these people saw me, they talked to me, they knew I was there, and they knew I was important. And again, I know that's not going to be real high on a whole lot of people's list, maybe not as much as what it should be, but for me, I think that's also an added benefit.
I love it.
So, moving on to the 3-sorter system, and I think the biggest positive thing to this is, and I say this jokingly, but I mean this, because my mother implemented this at the Bonanza and the Fall Classic for several years in the cattle. And the National Western Steer Show does this. I'd say it's semi-easy to get to one judge and have them coerced into a certain person's favor. 2, way more difficult. It's damn near impossible to get 3 people, 3 different sorters swinging for the same person. And if you are that talented, you probably deserve to win the show anyway, if you're going to go through all that much. But
and even
I think it...
And take it the other direction, right? It's just as difficult maybe for one of those judges to eliminate somebody because they
eliminate somebody politically the other way. And that's something about politics that people don't bring up. And I think there's many people that get taken out by politics that actually get pushed across to the backdrop on it. And
I think there's considerably more that get taken
okay, I'm glad you said that because I agree too.
More.
I agree with that too. But that sword or that candle burns at both ends, that sword cuts both ways. It's hard to get 3 people to sway for you. It's 3 people probably aren't going to take the same exhibitor out. And so I think what this system does really well is eliminate any political bullshit.
And I love that.
No.
I like it.
I do too. I love it, and that's why we implemented it at the Bonanza and Fall Classic there for a number of years. And Camp Show, excuse me. But I think that is the biggest positive for this system.
There is one other thing that I would put in second to that, and it's a distant second. But I think it's interesting because it's entertaining for me to watch that show when they post the placings of those 3 individual judges that are very likely all very well respected, held in high regard. It does bring to the exhibitor and the spectator's attention that, wow, I mean, these 3 don't agree on the same champion. They all 3 have different ones winning this class. That is how it works, guys. It just is what it is, and it's a subjective event. We all have different priorities. I think it brings light to the fact that there are different opinions out there. We need to take a deep breath when we don't win because it's just an opinion.
See, you see that as a positive. I see that as a positive. I'm also going to say for a large portion of the people out there exhibiting in the family show, they do not see that as a positive, and they get angry about it.
No, it needs to be more black and white. I understand, but it is what it is.
And that was one of the biggest complaints when my mother did this at her shows was, well, we were first on 2 cards and that one idiot put us 4th. How is that possible?
It's very possible. Very possible.
And you try to explain that to them and they don't want to understand it. I see that as a positive because I know how much differences there are in opinions and priorities and stuff like that in sorting stock. You see it as positive. I do. I think the masses don't. And so then, and that's kind of also why it's a positive. It's one of the negatives because I don't think when they see those scores put up there, and a lot of times there's not a great deal of consistency in them. Some classes there are, some classes there's not. I've seen one show that my mother had. Watched this all day. There was absolutely no consistency among the 3. All 3 very well respected, nationally renowned judges. There was no consistency all day. 0. I saw a show one time where it was maybe a pair switch here and there, but pretty much spot on. But again, it's just going to depend on who the sorters are, and I think a lot of it depends on the depth of that show in terms of quality. Because if there's just one really good one out there, and then some nice ones, and then some lower end ones, yeah, you're all probably going to be pretty similar. At the shows that we're talking about this being implemented, again, the depth, the quality is going to be there. And so it is little things and small personal preferences and minor details that sort out how they rank on the top end. So there probably will be a lot of difference. So while that's a positive in some people's eyes, it's a big negative in others.
And I can see the frustration that it would have when it is that way. When I win on 2 cards and I'm fourth on the third, I understand the frustration. So I'm with you, Ryan.
People get really mad when they win under 2 people and get like third or fourth on the other and end up second. It does not go well. I'm just telling you from personal experience when my mother did it. They do not like that.
I get it.
But
I get it. I like the fact that it's being brought out that this is it. And you know what? Maybe it's not even healthy for the industry to understand that, wow, we just went to Kansas City under a one judge system and my daughter won the Market Goat show. But guess what? If we'd had 3 judges in there or a different judge, she could have stood second in class. It's hard for people to accept that champion may not have been champion under another judge. And it's so simple for me to see.
But
it's
that's
just
the truth.
Yeah, it just is what it is. And I'm not trying to diminish a champion or anything like that, but we need to realize there's a handful of them there capable of winning that, and good luck which one you land on.
Right. I mean, and that goes back to how competitive it is and how strong the stock are and how great the families are that are taking care of them and everybody involved. It's just,
I think it's a compliment to the whole industry.
Right, yeah. So then moving on to more other negatives in the 3-person system, obviously it is a little more time consuming because they've got to mark cards, they've got to turn in those cards, those have to be inputted or tabulated and then put up on a screen. And so why I don't think it is nearly as dramatically time consuming as people want to claim it is because they don't want to like the system. The people that don't like the system, oh my God, this is taking forever and da-da-da. I don't think it is nearly that bad. It is the most time consuming of the 3 for all the obvious reasons. I've got personal experience with this. Not only have I done it, but I've been show management, watched it unfold, got feedback. For me, as a bystander and as a judge, I see more times than not that because there is 3 different opinions, then there is no discussion because that is part of taking all the politics and swaying. Because if you had 3 people out there and their marked cards, there's going to be somebody that's more dominant. So if they got to talk, they might be able to influence another one of those people. So there is no discussion. You just mark your card, you turn it in. I think the biggest problem with this system is more times than not, maybe those animals that are truly unique, but not one of these 3 just isn't into that type of uniqueness. They get beat and just a good, solid one wins instead of an elite one, if that makes any sense, Dale.
It makes perfect sense. And I think it's human nature, Ryan. When you're out there on that 3-man system, subconsciously, you don't want to be the odd person out. I don't know that
that
you
was
would,
my next point, but go ahead.
And I don't think
you're right.
You wouldn't fall into this category necessarily.
No, I did not.
No,
because I did it multiple times and I did not.
No, but I think in general,
I was the odd person out.
Yes, that's what I would predict. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm actually complimenting you for that. But I do believe it's human nature. It's almost like even on a judging contest committee, when it's enforced that you turn in your own placing to the referee judge as an official, you're a little bit, it's a little bit the fact that you don't really subconsciously want to be that odd person out. So you're going more to the center in the middle of the road, maybe what you'd call even a little plain, Ryan. But I am completely with Ryan. Those unique creatures that are so difficult to make and to manage, you may have 2 people completely on board that appreciate that may come from a background for whatever reason that really, really appreciates those type of animals because they are so difficult to create. And you may have a third one that's just not the direction they're going at all. And they stick it down in third. That one is not going to work its way to champion, where on a 2-person system, a 1-person system, probably has a little better chance. It's difficult. I'm not saying that problem-free, complete livestock shouldn't win, but I kind of like the idea of problem-free, complete, no problems with, what'd you talk about in the Reasons Room? Conversation with a bit of kick.
Conversation with a kick, yeah.
I like the no problems with all the bells and whistles that you can bring with it.
All the times that I've watched it, whether it was at one of my mother's shows or somewhere else, I never saw one win that wasn't good. Now, I'm also going to say I saw ones at that show that was like, you know what? I would have probably landed on that one. And that one didn't win, and I think it's because of this. But I think a good one always ends up on top. There's no sure system to eliminate any political bullshit than this, because 3 independent people mark a card and turn it in with no discussion. And so, but those are the drawbacks that I see. I think more times than not, maybe one of those really good animals gets up there, and maybe not just that wow factor. And it's more time consuming. I think from a judge's perspective, this would be the hardest. And it not that judging should be hard, but I think this is the hardest system of any of them to judge. Because when you're the only person out there, it's not hard at all. You are king daddy or queen daddy of the day, and whatever you say is goes. This here, just like Dale brought up, I do think that there is, in a lot of judges, that inclination, man, when these scores come up, I don't want to be the one that had them all different and all this. And so I think that plays in, like I talked about, the subconscious affects us in everything, even in judging. And so I think that does play a big part of it. And so I think from a judging perspective, probably the least enjoyable of the 3 systems, because there is very little communication, and you're always going to be a little apprehensive when those scorecards come up.
I'm going to say over half of the people, half of the judges that would serve on a 3-man system would probably write that card down just a little different, maybe a pair switch than what they would do on their own, not knowingly, but subconsciously. And I'm going to take it a step further. There are some judges that simply are not going to agree to judge that show because they do not feel comfortable putting their placings up there with 2 others out there in the public.
We've had people tell my mother when she asked and told them, I just don't think that's my deal. And I respect that.
Yeah, and I do too. I love taking the politics out of it, but it does come with complications.
When it is a subjective opinion, no matter whether it's 1, 2, or 3, there's going to be complications, everything. And there's probably not a perfect system because it is just a subjective opinion. And that needs to be put out there. But these are the things that, as I see them and Dale see them, are the pros and cons of the 3 main types of ways that livestock shows get sorted.
And those of you listening, please understand, this is simply our opinion, just like judging a show. We are coming from an exhibitor, a breeder. We're bringing a lot of different angles into this and trying to sort through it with an open mind to try to better our industry. And I promise you that's the goal here. I can assure you I would much rather enjoy going out there and sorting a show by myself more than a 3-man committee. I probably would enjoy sorting a show with a co-judge more than either of the other 2. And for the reasons we talked about. And I think it's clear in summary, Ryan, there's no question that in my mind, and I think we were going to use all 3 systems. They're going to continue. And that's great. But I think with what we've talked about today, both you and I land probably more on a compromise of the 2-person system, maybe solving the most issues.
No, there's no doubt in my mind that I think a 2-sorter system is the most beneficial for almost everyone. I think it's the most beneficial for the families and the exhibitors. I think it is the most beneficial as a judge. I think it's more beneficial from a show manager's perspective because, again, you're getting 2 qualified, competent, capable people out there to service the exhibitors that are coming to your show. I think it should be implemented and used more.
And I think, and this is going to sound bad. If there's a situation that we're looking at what shows we're going to go to and the judges are posted, Ryan and I have talked about this before. We can pick and choose which shows we choose to go to and how exhibitor friendly they are, whether we have an animal that maybe fits that judge or not. If you have two judges coming into play, I think it lends more confidence to that exhibitor going to the show. That's what it maybe even summarizes down to.
Concur completely.
Well, Ryan, that was enjoyable. I don't know if we're way long or where we're at on here, but that was good. I enjoyed that conversation.
You're always worried about being long.
Yeah, but there's no reason we're going to quit that. Your Glowing Up Yay proved us to be one of the most popular episodes, and I didn't even look, but I think it was long.
I'm sorry, I'm long-winded. I've lived a while. I'm the world's oldest drag queen in the livestock show. It takes a little bit to get my story out. Pardon me, Dale. I am going to
go on the record. There will be a part 2 to Glowing Up Gay.
Oh, Jesus. Here we go.
I don't know when, but there's going to be a part 2. Okay, it is time.
Oh, Lord.
We only have 2, Ryan.
Oh,
only 2. Question and answer. First one's from Heather. This is only my second year showing livestock and also my last year in 4-H. I've heard you guys and a lot of other people talk about ring presence, and I was wondering if you could talk more about how to achieve this in any livestock show.
That's a real good question, and it's a real hard one to answer. I'm just going to be super honest. And again, I don't want to offend anybody. I think a whole lot of ring presence, you're just born with it. And it's not just in the ring, but there are just people who hold themselves differently, have more presence, have more poise, and all of those things naturally than some others do. And so a lot of it is just that. It's kind of just that individual. I do think there are ways to improve ring presence and to improve that part of showmanship. I think, again, and I say this a lot in terms of talking about kids practicing reasons in a competitive livestock judging deal, I tell them to give the reasons in a mirror. I think something that would be beneficial is everybody's got a video camera on their phone. So if you have somebody out there that can video you, whether you're in practice or the ring, you can see how you hold your body, how you position yourself, and those things, and you can give yourself a little more presence, whether it's standing up straighter or not, or, pushing your shoulders back, holding your head up a little higher, things like that. And then the other thing is a lot of what I consider to be ring presence, other than your body language, is what I see in your eyes. And there are kids in shows every single weekend that will stare a hole through me, but there's nothing behind that stare.
Almost a blank stare, cold stare.
Right. There's nothing behind that. You got to have something. You got to have a fire, an intensity, an awareness behind those eyes. And that is something that truly gives you a great deal of ring presence. Eye contact is good. There's no doubt, and it's something that's important. But if there's nothing behind that eye contact that shows me that there is a live, beating soul there that wants to win and would do almost anything to come out of that class as the winner, then eye contact isn't as good when there is somebody like that. And there are lots of kids out there that you can tell just by reading what's behind those eyes that they're in it to win it.
That was good, Ryan. That may have been your best answer to question and answer. And even with that, it's still hard to implement. I like the fact that you talk about born with it. It's natural. I agree with that. I think you can improve
And there is a lot of that. Everybody can improve everything in their life. But also, no matter what we're in, people are going to be born with certain attributes that others aren't. And that's just how it is. And a lot of it is there, but there are ways to improve. And I hope that helps answers this young lady's question.
I love it. Great answer. The next question comes from Nick. My daughter is wrapping up her first year showing weather goats. We use sled and weights to exercise. How efficient are track dogs and how big of a track is needed?
Goat guru of the world.
Ryan, I'm going to throw this back to Texas, and I'm going to show my ignorance or lack of experience. I don't know. But I came into this goat business maybe 10 years ago, and I heard about this, and I only heard about it in Texas using sleds and weights to exercise goats. I have never seen this. I have no.
I'm from Texas. I've never.
But I've heard of it,
I've heard of it, but I've never seen. I've never seen it happen.
They talk about
completely clueless on any of that. Now, we had a track and we had a track dog and all that stuff. So I mean, but I mean, I know that people do that and the sleds and the weights and all that other stuff.
I haven't heard them hooking up a tire to the goat to drag her. I just don't even know how you physically hook it up or.
Oh, God. So back in the ice ages before right after the earth cooled, that was really popular when I was growing up showing sheep, is they would make the lambs pull a tire.
With like a harness or something on them?
They would like take it. Yeah. I mean, they would like put enough rope on it that it would be way behind them.
Well, how do they hook it to the animal?
Around the neck with a harness.
And
it was terrible for them. All it did was break their loin, and it was god awful. I'm not saying it was good, but like literally, that was a trend at one time. But I think now probably the safest things to do as far as exercising would be treadmills, walkers, or a track. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. My only hesitation on the track, and I think with a good track dog, it's as effective, especially on sheep and even on goats. It's one of the best. I've gone through 3 or 4 track dogs. I am not a good dog handler. I do not take enough time to learn how to command a dog. So I have not had very good luck with the dog, but there are dogs out there and people that are very capable that it's amazing. However, good luck finding that really good dog. Even if you're willing to spend quite a bit of money, it may work really well for that trainer that's trained that dog. When you bring it home, it's going to take effort on your part. So I hesitate. I do not have we have a track. We do not have a track dog at this point. My children are the track dogs at this point. So and the track size, that's fair. I mean, you can go with a 60-foot oval track. You can go with a smaller one. I don't know that that's going to make a huge difference as long as there's enough room for them to get some speed and really get their metabolism going and adrenaline going, especially on the track dog side. I think that adrenaline of them being fearful of that track dog is probably as beneficial as anything. So I don't know. Maybe you had success with the sled and weights. I don't understand that, so I can't answer that. But I find it, I don't think it's probably going to work real well. Maybe a treadmill going backwards,
but
maybe a track. There's some different ways.
I was going to say, Dale, and I mean, because again, we haven't had a sheep or goat at my house in probably 6 years on like feed and exercising and stuff. But I would be willing to say, don't you think the cost of a treadmill and the cost of a track and a track dog are pretty comparable?
Probably. Now that the track dogs, I've spent a lot of money on track.
Or a treadmill would be cheaper.
Yes, a treadmill would be cheaper
and more effective.
Yes,
or just as effective.
And unless you're experienced with a track dog and you want to train dogs, there's very few. I hear more stories about people buying track dogs that don't work than I do stories of dogs that do work. Again, if you have one that you're capable of working, it's as good as it gets. But I would strongly recommend go to a treadmill if you want to burn calories and harden up that lamb or goat. Go forward if you want to try to build some back and build some hip and leg. Let's go backwards be careful. We can't injure them on a treadmill. Use it with some common sense. But that's probably your best option as far as just it's going to work for more people.
And again, you're talking about track dogs and stuff like that. I mean, I've heard just as many nightmare stories as I've heard, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And I think a lot of it is what you're saying about the person that trains the track dog, and then you bring the track dog to a different environment and a different family. And a lot of the things that I have heard, just being honest, is, and this makes a lot of sense to me listening, is that, obviously, if you're in the show animal industry, you have a love for animals. And so you probably treat the track dog too much like a pet and not enough like what he's supposed to be. And maybe that's some of how it goes a little awry.
I wasn't going to go there, but there's too much truth there. And I'm going to just touch on it. Most track dogs are kept in a elevated kennel. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not meant to be out and be a pet and things like that. I'm not saying there are track dogs that can be pets.
They're supposed to be like a predator.
Yeah, it's you're gonna not want to interact with them as much. Now, I'm not saying there's not exceptions to that, but in general,
there's exceptions to everything.
Yes,
but
most track dogs go to a new place and they become a little more of a pet, and it just doesn't work. That's simple. Avoid at this moment, unless you're very competent and want to put a lot of effort into it. Maybe avoid.
Unless you can be a real asshole to that dog.
Okay, you said it. Nice job, Ryan. Nice job.
I speak the truth.
You do a fine job of speaking the truth, good and bad, whether it offends people or not. And I
exactly.
Appreciate it. Ryan, that's all I have for this week.
Just before we go off and whatever, I do want to thank everybody that has reached out to me from last week's episode. Just the outpouring of kindness and your comments and your messages. It's truly touching to me, and I do appreciate it. And if I didn't get back to all of you, it's not that I haven't tried. It's just been a lot, but I do want to tell everybody that listened to that and did reach out to me that I greatly appreciate it, and I want to say a sincere thank you from the bottom of my heart for y'all finding inspiration or whatever it is you found in my story. And so I mean that deeply. Thank you.
And Ryan, I've had a lot of messages and comments about that episode, and I can tell you that listening to it and as we recorded it, I appreciate you tossing that out there, because there's no question that has impacted a lot of people in a positive way. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?